Hello, everyone, and thank you for bearing with us through our tech challenges. Wednesday is definitely Tech Challenge Day, it seems.
okay.
I am here with my amazing guest and a phone call, naturally, because what would it be if the phone didn't go off? Welcome to Suzanne Clothier, my friend, world-renowned author, dog trainer, consultant, person who has worked with more types of dogs and wolves, I believe, than anyone I've ever met. And as a personal endorsement, one of the very, very, very few people that I would hand my dog's leash to. So thank you, Suzanne, for taking the time and welcome.
You are very welcome, and that's high praise indeed, because I have a very short list of people I would hand my dogs over to, so I recognize that. But I think you got to get out more, Lori. If I'm the person who's worked with the most dogs, like you need to get out and about.
I need to get out and about. Okay, I'll take my dogs with you after having participated in several of your programs, and I was so excited to talk to you because not only do you offer something that a lot of the other experts I'm blessed to talk with don't, you consider the mind of the dog and the relationship we have with our dogs. Whereas everybody else is kind of focused on medicine and different aspects of health and stuff. And your programs are unique and you look at dogs in such a different way. So I was thinking we would just dive in and talk about your first general approach to dogs, what you've introduced to me as the elemental questions.
Oh, so the elemental questions. I think in another life I might have been an alchemist who liked boiling things down to their essential elements and then seeing what happens when I put different combinations together. So maybe at heart I'm some kind of medieval alchemist. I don't know. But I really like the thought of how simple can we get things without getting simplistic? Like what actually lies at the heart of things? And so it began to dawn on me that there were actually only 6 questions that informed everything I do with
Wow.
any animal. And I thought, huh. So I test drove that in my head without telling people for quite some time. I was like, no, these really are, this 6 elemental questions that if we've got those as our framework, we can do amazing things with animals. Now, learning how to ask those questions and how to hear the answers, that is the work of a lifetime. And I keep working on that. I don't think dog trainers should say they're trainers. They should be practicers. Like vets, it's a practice, right? Because you're acutely aware that you are every day practicing and hoping you're getting it right. But each day you learn something. So the 6 elemental questions are: hello, who are you? How is this for you? Can you? May I? Can we? So let's dive
Wow.
into those a little bit more, right?
Literally 2-word questions. And just to back up, you work with dogs primarily, but you live on a farm. You have cattle, you have sheep, you have donkeys, you have
No
horses.
sheep. No sheep.
Uh-oh, no sheep.
Sheep is one of the species I've not owned. I've dabbled with it, but I'm just like, I just can't. I've dealt with sheep, but I'm like, you're just not for me, But we have donkeys, pigs, Scottish Highland cattle, horses, pony, tortoises, a macaw, an Amazon, a cockatoo, 7 German shepherds, 3 cats. I think that's all we have today.
That's a full house.
And chickens, yes.
These questions apply literally to all animals, I would imagine.
Yes. Absolutely all of them. So that first initial one, and you can actually dive into that circle of questions anywhere, but often the one that when we go to interact with an animal is that simple question of hello. Are you even interested in interacting with me? And sometimes the answer is I am not. It's like, but I need to get a halter on you because I need you to come in this stall so that I can let the vet check the thing on your leg. So then we have to, when the animal says, no, I'm not interested, it's like, well, can I sweeten the deal? Right? What would get you interested in talking to me? And this is the question that I think we abuse with dogs because we love them or we love other species. And because we love them, we think they're going to be fascinated by us just because we love them. It's like, um, no, no. And I think everyone should have to deal with, livestock that have great freedom, like our beef cattle.
Mhm.
It's like, no, they're perfectly free to walk away and say, I do not wish to talk to you. Mm-mm, I don't. Um, so we do that with dogs. We're like, oh, you're so cute. And we reach for them, and the dog says, wait, no, I'm not interested in having a chat with you. So that hello is first and foremost, are you interested in interaction? Do I have the right to interact with you? Am I scaring you by interacting with you? Am I exciting you to the point where you can't even think in interacting with you? And what would be an appropriate, respectful, humane way to interact with you? And if I have to, as sometimes, every vet on the planet knows that feeling, it's like, I'm really sorry, little guy. I'm sure you'd be happier at home on the couch, but we actually need to do this thing. So how can we make this interaction okay? The next question then is who are you? So how do you process the world? How do you experience the world? So whether that's one of our beef cattle noticing there's a little leak in the hose making a hissing sound, and
Mhm.
1,600-pound bull who says, I cannot walk past that. It's like,
Mhm.
seriously? No, seriously, cannot, not happening. Um, how do you process the world? Are you a noise sensitive dog? Are you sensitive to
Mhm.
movement? Are you worried about people? Do children alarm you? Are you super excited by skateboards or bicycles? Or do you find things exciting but scary at the same time? How are you? Which senses do you use? Like your girl Fame, very visual. I mean, very visual and auditory. Like
She sees everything.
she misses nothing. And that's to her detriment too, because it means she can't tune out. That's a meaningless gesture. That's someone putting their hair behind their ears. She's like, what was that about? It's like,
Yeah.
just put my hair behind my ears. We're okay. No threat. She's like, I don't know. I have to sort that out. Right. So in a room full of all kinds of visual and auditory stimuli, she's having a very different experience than the dog I've got laying at my feet, who
Mhm.
is not that sensitive to input. He's just a much more easygoing dog. You could probably, all be back teasing your hair into a 1950s beehive, and he might not even notice unless there were treats, that you were stuffing in it.
Well, and I think of dogs who live in the city and maybe who are even born there. You
Mhm.
know, how much do they have to learn to tune out?
Well, and
The
we know
sound,
from yeah,
vibration, smells,
sound
everything.
sound, I think when we have a dog who's sound sensitive, it's one of the hardest aspects to deal with because I can control visual input. I can put window films over the
Mhm.
windows. I can limit, I can ride in a dog crated with a blanket over it. I
Sure.
can block visual input. But if I have a dog who's noise sensitive, it comes through the walls, the ceiling, the floors. And worse still, I mean, at least what we see, the dogs can see. We have a good clue what they're seeing because they don't see as accurately as we do or
Mhm.
in as much color. But sounds, they hear much higher than we do, and they hear much lower. So that if we think an environment's noisy, I can only guess that there are aspects of it that we're not even hearing. That's just a fact of science, right? So that how do we help that dog? And science has shown us too that people that live in noisy environments, it's not that their brain tunes it out, their body still has to cope with it. We
Mhm.
just actively don't attend to it.
Mhm.
It lowers IQ points, it raises blood pressure, it increases blood cortisol levels.
Mhm.
Like, oh no, I'm used to living next to the elevated train tracks. Like, Are you? Your body says otherwise.
Your body still responds. And
Exactly.
that's one of the things that people say is, oh, I'm not going to bother to listen to about training and behavior because it has nothing to do with health, and my
Mhm.
dog is facing a health challenge. Well, if we've got something that is raising your dog's cortisol level, that is huge.
Yeah.
And all these other biological ramifications that you might not realize are happening because of your dog's mindset and, for lack of a better term, and their behavior training and their natural tendencies. The
So
mind-body
understand
connection is the most important thing, I think.
who are you is really asking about how does the world hit you? How does it affect you? How do you move through it? What stresses you? What pleases you? So
Mhm.
I will get training clients who say, like, my dog doesn't want to go more than 100 feet from the house, and then she panics and tries to pull me back. And then
Sure.
on the top of it, she's also describing the dog has digestive issues and isn't sleeping well. I'm like, these go together. Taking that
Mhm.
dog for a walk is not, it's not socialization. It's not helping. And it's
Right.
not a matter of building a trail of hot dogs. The dog saying, I can't handle this. I can't handle this. It's like so, and sometimes we don't realize that training, in the name of training, we're doing things that actually stress the dog. So that first question, hello, is that's neither here nor there. Who are you? I need to know that. So that when I was working with Fame, like one of the first assessments I made is how does this dog process life? What's her reaction speed? What gets her attention in the environments? Like everything. Plus, she was lightning fast. I was
Oh,
like,
she's easily the fastest dog I have ever owned, and
mhm,
right now, I have 4 dogs in my house, as many of you know. I have Fame's sister, Flair, I have Flair's daughter, and I have a half brother to Fame and Flair. So my genetic diversity is pretty low in this household, but they are all very different, and it's because of something this always makes me think of something you told me when I first met you. I think when I was introducing you to Fame and explaining
mhm.
the genetics, and you told me, "Lori, stop it. Genes do not blend, they sort." And that is so true in my population of family. I mean, Flair is nothing like her sister, as is the case in many human families. Um,
And we
and
make a mistake, right, when we say, like, "I have a fill in the blank," and it could be a Mary Poppins oodle. It
sure.
could be, yeah, anything, right? So when we say, like, "I have this breed, and so that's why he's acting this way," it's like, well, that's statistics. Anytime someone says, dogs, like, "These dogs do these things," it's like, that's statistically true.
Mhm.
Lori and I are pretty much of an age, it's like, well, you know how gray-haired women are, right? It's like, I don't know, do we? Statistically, maybe we do certain things more than, 20-year-old blondes, I have no idea, but it's not useful to chat with me and then assume that chatting with me is the same as chatting with Lori because 'cause we're both, older ladies with, yeah,
Different
gray
life
hair.
experience, different genetics, and
Exactly.
and
Even
who
if we were sisters, we have had a different experience.
Mhm.
So, who are you is really focusing us on who are you as an individual. I don't care that I had your brother or I've had 15
Right.
others of that breed or that mix. It doesn't change the reality of this dog, right? And that's the thing that we prize for ourselves and in our own healthcare is someone who's listening to who we are as individuals, not
Mhm.
just there might be information that's useful that hey, my sister had this and my mother had this and my grandmother. It's like, okay. However, that doesn't mean you will or won't, right? So that
Right.
that who are you? I really want to know how the dog processes information that comes at them. Are they super sensitive to anything, or do they have deficits?
Mhm.
That I have worked with everything from a little pity mix that they presented. I think he was all of 14 weeks. He's
Mhm.
already growling at people, but intermittently. And I thought, that's interesting. So I'm just talking to the owner and I'm watching the dog and I'm asking this question in my head, who are you? And I thought, that's really interesting. When I throw treats at you, if it falls to your left side, you can reflexively track it to the ground. When I throw it to the right, there's like a Bermuda Triangle on this side
Mhm.
that that you don't notice till the treat has hit the ground. And I thought, huh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So I checked, and sure enough, he had deficits in his peripheral vision. The owner happened to be a fourth year neurology resident at Cornell.
Oh, wow.
So I pointed that out, and he got all excited. He's like, well, are there ophthalmologists for dogs? I'm like,
Of
well, yes, there
course.
are. You might just want to wander over to the veterinary school there. Um, but so he's checking it himself as a neurologist. He's, familiar with that. And he's like, how come no one else noticed this? I'm like, I don't know, but this is part of who are you? Because I thought, let's not assume that you are normal in any of your responses. You might have heightened sensitivity, you might have deficits, but I have to ask the dog. And in that question, the dog said, if people approach me from the left, it doesn't bother me at all. I can turn my head and I can see them coming. I can see when they're in my peripheral vision. When they were on the other side, they simply appeared.
Yeah.
And unless he heard them coming, I was like, huh. And I tested it. And yep, they came up and got suddenly into where his visual field began. And he's like, whoa, it startled him. And that was all we needed to know to help teach him, hey,
Well,
somebody's
to be
coming.
able to find that at 14 weeks of age,
Yeah.
huge. Because think of that dog going through a year of his life before
Mhm.
somebody figured it out.
Yep. And because he was a pity mix, right? He growls at people and automatically everyone's saying, oh, it's because he's a pity mix. It's like, or
Right.
maybe he's just a dog who's startled and
Yeah.
isn't feeling terribly secure. And so that client was so grateful. It's like, oh, we can work with that. That's just a training issue.
Yeah.
We can give him information, we can teach him, we can be proactive to help him. Hey, it's like dealing with someone who's got limited vision. It's like, hi, I'm in the room. That's the polite thing to do when you enter in a
Or my friend who can't hear out of one ear. You just orient yourself to the other side if you know that, and
right. But
everything's
we
easy.
often with training, we don't do that.
Right. No,
We
we don't.
we assume normal until it's grossly evident. And I think I don't assume anything. I'm asking you, can you hear
Yeah.
out of both ears? Can you see out of both ears? Do you have normal range of motion? Can you turn your head in all the normal dog directions? Can you sit comfortably and hold that? And if not, why not? And how does that affect your interaction with people, the environment? How does it affect your behavior, your interactions with other dogs, your ability to learn something? The number of dogs presented to me for being stubborn when they were asked to sit over and over again, and it hurt them. So they would
Oh,
lay
I
down or stand.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think of that dog that was in Kindle's class that was in a harness, was kind of a black and tannish or light
Mhm.
tan dog, and it did not have normal mobility in its lumbar spine.
Yep.
That dog could not. Somewhere I have video I should share with you. Um, that dog physically cannot. So when we ask it to, the outcome is maybe no, maybe pain, you know.
And it could be frustrating, right? Can you
And
imagine being an
yeah,
animal? If I asked you, like, Lori, can you sit in this airplane, seat for 10 hours because we're going off to Alaska? You're like,
not in
uh,
your life.
not without not without some medication on board. It's not going to happen. I'm going to need the aisle seat because I'm going to get up and walk.
No, I'm
And
gonna need first
oh,
class so they can drug me and I can sleep.
like, that was my favorite. I'm like, just let me lay down. Oh, this is
Yeah,
the best thing ever. Then I priced it. I was like, oh, okay,
yeah.
fine. It's nice to have. But so sometimes dogs get really frustrated, and if we then start to be punitive, or we think they're blowing us off, or they're trying to get away with something, and the dog's like, I how stop. Right? Now you're scaring me, now you're hurting me.
Mhm.
Um, and so that's missing, and it's missing as much in the veterinary field as it is sometimes in the training field, and I will send people back and say, "Go ask your vet if that's normal." I'm not a vet, and I'm not diagnosing, I'm just telling you what I see. Now go ask the vet, and the vet's like, "Oh, yeah, that shouldn't go like that." It's like,
Yeah, yeah.
"Okay, who found
Well,
that?" They ask. It's like,
well,
"Oh, this crazy trainer." Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
this crazy trainer who's looked at hundreds of thousands of animals.
Oh, I
Uh,
won't go that far. You make me sound like I'm Methuselah and I've, like, been on Noah's Ark and then, you
oh,
know
come on, I
um,
have to show this. I have to
a
show.
lot of dogs. Okay, yes. Oh,
Yes, I have this book, way back when I stood in your driveway. You weren't home. You were off giving a seminar, which is another thing we'll have to. Oh,
Mhm.
where is it? Look, she even signed it for me.
There you go.
Um, you know, you have, maybe I shouldn't say hundreds of thousands of dogs, but
Thousands,
breadth
thousands, yes. Mhm.
the breadth of experience. The service dogs, the guide dogs for the blind, the wolves, you know, other working dogs, pet dogs. The variety is, I think, where we really develop some skills to look at the dog as an individual.
Yep. So
And that's the whole.
yes, everything from, living with people's dogs to train them
Mhm.
to, working for various guide schools as a consultant, doing search and rescue, doing the show dog,
Right.
breeding and whelping and raising
What
different breeds.
generation of German Shepherds are you on with Hawks Hunt?
11.
11.
11 generations of
Yeah.
dogs. And so everybody in my house is still a direct descendant of my foundation male,
And
which is
I mean,
very
I
rare.
find in my 4 generations, I love seeing traits that ancestors had.
Mhm.
You never met Trinket, Flair, and Puck's mother and Fame's mother, but there are Trinketisms in Kindle, and it's so interesting to see those behaviors pop up, and how, now that I've lived with those behaviors for generations, how I can so easily morph them into the direction I want them to go.
Yep, and I mean, that's an art form in itself, but the experience of raising a litter of puppies and watching them grow up, and then 11 generations means I've watched a lot of dogs grow up, live their lives, and are now long gone.
Yeah.
So that continuity in terms of one breed, and for about 5 years, I've bred Brittany's too, but I've also raised puppies for other people,
Mhm.
everything from pointers to Shelties, Westies. They were funny. There was snow that year, so thank God they're not really pure white, because I thought I'm gonna put them in the snow and then thank
They're
God
gone. I
nose
won't.
I'm gone. But they're actually like a dusty
Yeah,
cream
yeah.
white. Yeah, they were just so totally different from any of the other breeds that I've
Mm.
raised. And then helping people of different breeds. I helped a lady in the Virgin Islands take a rescue litter and then use my enriched puppy program to do that. And she had the time and the resources to really invest in helping these puppies do the very best they could. And so it was good and bad, because what she raised were amazing little potatoes that were like bold and confident and connected and love people. Uh,
Mhm.
and I thought they're going to ship them to the States, and people that meet them will say, "Oh, I want a Virgin Island dog because they're wonderful." It's like, well,
Well, it's and
those are raised very, very well
we
with
can
the
take a little turn. Your enriched puppy program, and there are others out there as well that have equal benefits. Um, Taking what a breeder puts into a litter, or someone who's taking a rescue litter, is so vital. And what those puppies learn from the time even before their eyes are opening to when they're 8 weeks of age, and I'm a firm belief that 8 weeks is the absolute minimum age they should be departing the litter.
Yep.
In some breeds and individuals, they may benefit from a longer stay with the
Mhm.
group, but you put a lot in there. I mean, you've got a puppy that is so far advanced, that is so much ready to be an amazing dog. And all the new owner has to do is get with the program.
Yeah, we call them plug and play puppies, right? So
Yeah,
they arrive at one guide school. The rule of thumb was when you got the puppy that you were going to raise for the school, you had 2 weeks where pretty much you didn't go anywhere, you didn't do anything, you let the stress, diarrhea die down, and then maybe if everything was good, then you could take them out. And so it was an experienced raiser picking up a puppy, and this organization had switched to my way of raising puppies, and so they said, "Okay, how long do I have to keep them home? It's been a while since I raised a puppy." And they're like, "'Cause we have a
an
family
hour.
barbecue tonight, what can we do?" They're like, "Take the puppy with you." Puppy
Yeah,
knows about going in a car. He knows about being crated. He knows how to walk on a leash. He's met all kinds of people. He's been an individual. He's got all kinds of skills. Plug and play, man,
yeah.
on the way home. Stop in the
And
joy. Mhm.
And they haven't had that deficit of time that some dogs are getting, like we were talking about the 14-week-old, to live for months without anything, exposure-wise or something that's a frustrating challenge.
And
Yeah.
because I asked that question, I mean, the relationship is everything to me with the animal.
Mhm.
But because I asked that elemental question of "Who are you?" I send each puppy home with a really detailed bit of
Yeah.
information about he's gonna need some work on this because when he sees something that's alarming to him visually, give him a moment to process, then do the following so that they never get to that 14-week-old stage.
No.
Uh, it's like, here, he's really excited by movement, so let's start putting this in place already. That just because
Mhm.
someone ran past you fast doesn't mean that you should, grab onto their ankles. So that big question of who are you? And then the question after that one, Lori, is how is this for you? And that's
Yeah.
an immediate in this moment, how is this for you?
How is this striking you?
Yeah, if I lean back, is that better, worse? If I don't make eye
Mhm.
contact, better, worse?
And that was very important in treat retreat,
Yes.
which if you wanna highlight that and you offer that program online, right?
Yeah, we've got an overview webinar. You can see that in our recorded webinars. But the certification course so trainers can learn. There's a lot of sloppy stuff out there, that's like, I know treat or treat. It's like, do you? And then I watch their YouTube videos and I think that that's not right. It's really about the dog saying,
Right.
how is it for you? This is okay for me
Yeah.
in every single throw. And it's really the dog says
Well,
what we're
and I imagine the YouTube videos look like people just tossing food, and it's not about just tossing food.
Sometimes they do that, they just toss food or they're trying to lure the dog closer,
Yeah.
like,
And
you'll get a higher value treat if you come closer, where in Flair's class, or Fame's class,
who's
no
class?
way. It's like,
No,
you get to
was
come to
not coming within 20 feet of you week 1, maybe even
and it's like
30.
the dog's like, "This is as close as I feel safe coming." It's like, "Good job, and now I'm gonna send you back into safer." So
Right.
it's not like, "Okay, now you're good there. How about we push it a bit more? How about we push it a bit more?" It's like, "Nope, I'm gonna take the pressure off, send you into seeking mode, and then you tell me, do you wanna come back and do another round?" And it was really interesting watching Fame go from, "Ah," to, "Oh, okay."
Well, and towards the end, we had a lineup of people,
Mhm.
and he would voluntarily approach, which was, the ultimate in this was a confidence building experience for her, big time.
She didn't
Yeah,
know how to interact with people. She
she
would
didn't.
charge
She
towards
didn't.
them, and when she got there, she's like, "How did you get so close to me?" And it's like, "Well, darling, you galloped over to me." But people misread that, right? So they think, "Oh, she wants to say hi," and she's like, "No, I do not. No.
No, no, definitely not.
No, stop looking at me and talking to me." So it's like, let me teach you how to do this and stay safe. So yeah, we're really pleased to have the Treat Retreat certification program up there, which is going to go on sale, wink, wink, pretty soon. It's a once a year big sale because it's not a cheap course and it's one that takes trainers time to really master. But what
But
a
it's one that
great
can open up the lines of communication with challenging dogs.
Yeah, I
It
mean, because
is
we
a
need dogs that feel safe interacting with people. They don't have to become, the Walmart greeter of the dog world, but they need to feel safe to the extent we can get them there.
right.
So that because people are like ants, they're everywhere. They're just they're everywhere from a dog's
Well,
perspective.
and if you take your dog out, and it doesn't matter, I'll go to we have a local walking plaza with stores and stuff, and I can go sit at the far end where there's nobody. If I have a dog with me, all of a sudden 5 people are coming over, "Can I pet your dog?"
Mhm.
I mean, and the dog needs to at least feel confident enough for me to say, "No, you can't pet my dog." But she has to sit there without losing her total mind
Yeah,
while I
she has to feel
communicate.
like you've got her back, but she also has to not feel so pressured she wants to leave. Because in
Yeah.
terms of our dog's overall health, for me, if I've got a dog that says, "I would rather not be in this situation," if God decreed no leashes and collars, I'd be gone. Or if
Oh,
I
yeah.
could open that door, if I had the car keys, I would take myself home. So whenever we have that situation where you can see the dog saying, "I don't wanna be here," then we forget about what's actually happening biochemically inside that dog. It's like you being in a situation where you're like, I don't feel safe here. It's like, well, you're going to be here anyway. This is the weird part about air travel. It's like, I don't know, am I going to get on a flight that has a psycho trying to open a door or kill the flight
Mm.
attendant? Like,
Yeah,
um,
I am
not be
trapped
present.
here, and I have to be okay with it.
Yeah.
And, I may stay in my seat, but that doesn't mean my adrenaline is not going through the roof. My stomach isn't churning. You know, I'm on
Yeah.
the
I had a
here
guy on
today.
a flight to Belgium and somewhere over Greenland, and there's a point of like no return, where like you're either gonna backtrack to Newfoundland or you're gonna go to Shannon. And the guy behind me slides into a diabetic coma.
Oh my god.
Right.
What do
So,
you do?
and
Was there
how
medical on the
you
flight?
guys there was like a nurse and a dentist. And so they were talking through the pilot to ground control. Anyway, the woman, his wife is hysterical. And I'm sitting there and I'm just like, I don't want to be here. Like, if there was a magic button I could push and I was not in this moment, but it's like, it doesn't matter how panicky I get. There is no place to go. And the only thing I can do is use my resources to calm myself down. I can
Mhm.
add nothing to the situation. I can just make myself insane. And they were able to revive him, and all was well by the end of the flight. But it just gave me such empathy for dogs who think, I don't want to be here and I don't like what's happening. And that can be in a class setting where other people are being abusive to a dog, because people will sometimes say, well, it's the closest trainer and I'm not going to use those techniques. So it'll be fine. It's like, well, I'm going to take you to a kindergarten where the other children will be slapped around and crying, but don't worry, that won't happen to you, Jimmy. It's like, what? I don't want to go to that school. Um,
Decades ago, I witnessed that at a local dog training club, and there were people really harassing their dogs and abusing their dogs on stays. And my dog, my happened to be my first Aussie, he would just look at them with this horrified look and slink back to me. I mean, he was
Who
generally
wouldn't, right? Like, would we go to a restaurant where they were slapping around the other diners? It's like, "Don't worry, man, you're in the special table. Nothing bad will happen
nothing
to
bad will happen to you. Well, bad stuff is happening. It's in the air.
you."
I'm
Right.
out.
So that "How is this for you?" question, it
Yeah.
is just one question that people kept in mind. It would be like being a hyper concerned hostess. "Are you warm enough? Are you cool enough? Can I get you a blanket? Would you like a fan? Can I get you a cold drink? Can I get you a hot drink? Would you like an herbal tea? Would you like some caffeine? Would you like more cake? Would you like more lasagna? Are you sure?
Mhm.
How about now? Would you like a it's like, oh, for the love of God." But that is how we would take care of someone if we were in charge of their experience. It's like,
Right.
how can I make this good
No,
for you?
that's a brilliant statement. You are in charge of your dog's experience.
To the
You
extent
are
that
you are
you have
responsible for your dog's experience.
exactly. It's like a dinner guest or a guest from another country, and yes, he's gonna have his own perspectives, but that is our responsibility. How is this for you? And sometimes the answer is, "It's not great." And then the question becomes, "I'm really sorry." Like, if we have to do medical stuff or have to our beef cattle don't get handled much, so if we have to do anything, it's like, "I'm really sorry. This has to happen. I will explain what has to happen. We will go slowly, carefully, do it as quickly and efficiently as possible.
Mhm.
If necessary, we add sedation, so we're not fighting you through this."
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's that the question is not always that the dog is going to say, "Oh, this is perfect for me, Lori. My life is just nothing but rainbows." And unicorn farts. It's like, well, that's impossible to pull off. But the the question of how is this for you then puts the responsibility on us. Is there something I can do or stop doing to make it better? And it doesn't mean I'm going to make it 100%, but it's like, you know what? Let's move to this corner and put you behind me.
Mhm.
Let's put a sheet over that little bit of expense so you don't have to worry about that dog across the way who's staring at you, or the
Yeah.
stranger who's gonna come and touch you, or we just have to be here. I'm sorry, but I've got your back. I'm with you, and I'm not gonna panic. So at least you feel like I've got the
You have an
situation.
anchor.
I've got the situation under control. It might be a lie, of course, but um,
Well, fake it till you make it, right?
well, it's all good moms do that, right? My mom, I was
Sure.
telling a story. We were stuck in the Empire State Building at the very top for the big blackout of 1970.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know this.
It was hysterical. So my mom takes 4 kids and, my dad and my mom, and I thought like, "Well, why'd they turn out all the lights?" And my dad's like, "Well, so you can see better." I'm like, "Well, that's cool, because Manhattan suddenly went pretty much dark other than emergency lights." But I was like, "Oh,
You
all
can
right.
see the
I didn't know
stars.
that happened." That was very thoughtful of them.
Yeah.
Then when my dad said, "Okay, we'd like to go down now," and the elevator guy's like, "Well, yeah, that's not actually gonna happen for a while." It's like, "What?
How
What?"
long were you up there?
Hours.
Wow.
Hours and hours and hours till the cops climbed by 2 cops and a New York Times reporter climbed
Mhm,
up, and then we had to be led down. And
mhm.
in the Empire State Building, not all the floors are finished. So they're like, "Do not leave the staircase, because if you step off into a room, in some of them, there is no floor." It's like,
Oh my
"Oh, there's
god,
only 2 flashlights." It was insane. It was
that's
pretty insane.
crazy.
But my mom's like, I don't know what I would have done with 4 kids. I mean, imagine having just 4
It is
dogs.
like the ultimate big adventure.
Yeah, she was like, "Oh, that was fun," and she's like thinking, "Oh, how's this gonna go?" 12-year-old, a 10-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 7-year-old. It's like, "Oh, no problem." No
Wow.
bathroom, no snacks, no one had juice boxes in those days, if you didn't put it in mom's purse, it didn't exist.
Didn't happen.
No, and so she was just as calm as a cucumber, like, "You know what? Let's play some games. Let's sing some songs." And she was so calm when the lightning hit the lightning bolt, which is at the top, the lightning rod, and it's impressive, I gotta say, when a lightning bolt is hit a lightning rod not very far from you, it's quite impressive. And, an Englishman was like, "Oh," so he's about ready to pass out, and my mom's like, "Oh, yeah, that was just lightning." He's like, "Oh." She was so calm about
Oh my
saying it. He's like, "Oh, okay." And then his brain processed, "Lightning?" You know,
god.
afterwards, she said, "We were hoping that the emergency lights were still on because they were still flying planes,
Oh
and
my
there
god.
was a chance that a plane was not going to actually,
Know that you were there. Oh god.
But she acted like, "Yeah, I love to take the kids way up to this teeny tiny room and stay there for hours on end."
In
But
the dark.
she taught me that, like, yeah, like, act calm, stay calm, talk calm,
Mhm.
move, breathe. All of those things actually have the effect of calming you.
Yeah,
So, "How is this for you?" And a dog says, "This is really scary." I'm like, "It's okay. I got your back.
yeah.
I'm okay here. I'm aware of what's going on. I'm okay." So that how is this for you? And then we get to the next question, which is, can you? So now we're asking this thing that we're doing, this situation, this task I'm asking you for, like I'm going to take you to the mall. We're just going to watch people go by. Can you? Physically? Can you? Mentally? Can you? Emotionally? Can you?
Mhm.
Because sometimes the dog says, physically, I can do it, but emotionally, like you and I, Lori, probably could get on a balance beam and walk across it without falling off. Do we
Yeah.
want to? No, we do not.
No, that's not high on our list. No.
No, it's like if I had to save everybody's life, I probably could do it. But do I want to?
Find a way.
Absolutely not, right?
Yeah.
So, and the same can be true. The dog can be emotionally able to do it and mentally understands what you want, but physically, no, I actually can't. I cannot physically do that. And it could be really something as big as I have spondylosis or I've got
Mhm.
bad knees or I've got slipping hocks or, my neck is cranked or I've got some kind of disease, but it can be hidden stuff too. Like I don't feel good, my stomach is cramping,
Yeah.
which I could tell you it's like, "Oh, Lori, after we ate that
That
Caesar
spicy
salad,
food. Yeah.
I'm gonna lay off the garlic for a while." But the dog can't tell you that, and unless we
Yeah.
see something overt, we assume he's fine. If he didn't vomit or have diarrhea,
Mhm.
we're like, "He's fine." It's like, "No, he's not." I don't like, I think dogs get headaches. I'm just
Oh,
waiting for
absolutely.
science to prove that there's no reason on God's green earth they wouldn't. So do you have a headache? Do you not feel good? I remember a lady, there's this dog presented to me in a seminar. It's all hunched up. And so I'm thinking in my head, it was a jumping seminar and
Mhm.
gait and analysis. And I thought, this is a very odd posture for this dog to have. And I'm just looking at how roached he looked, and he just looked
Mhm.
miserable. And I'm watching him move and I'm thinking, I'm not seeing movement patterns that would indicate like that's a long standing, if he's got back problems, then you'll see the compensation. I'm like, that's not making any sense whatsoever. I'm like, okay, next step, what would actually maybe cause a dog? And I just got this really strong feeling in my own gut. I was like, ow. And I
Mhm.
said, has he eaten anything unusual? And she's
Yeah.
like, no. And I just checked the dog, and again, I'm not a vet, but I can recognize when the dog's guarding and that abdomen was tender. I was like, "You sure he's not eating anything strange? Because his movement, this is not a long-standing muscular problem. This is an acute ow."
Mhm.
Called me on Monday and goes, "Oh, yeah, I remembered now. He ate some broken glass."
Oh my god.
I'm like, I must have asked her 6, 10 times. "You're sure he hasn't eaten anything or gotten into something strange? Because
Mhm.
this doesn't make sense from a gait structure,
Yeah.
movement point of view. This is
That
something."
that level of abdominal discomfort when they've eaten. I had a dog that ate something
Mm.
like mini Legos, and
Oh,
he was pooping out Legos. Now, you know how uncomfortable it is to step on a Lego? Ima
oh,
Imagine this poor dog pooping them out. Thankfully, they were small. But yeah, that posture is striking and incredibly obvious.
and I just thought, how do you forget that your dog ate glass? But that's another whole story for another day. But
Yeah.
so that can you are you physically able, and I think way past just if you're not limping, you're okay. Because
Right.
sometimes dogs are, "Oh, he's fine." It's like, well,
Sometimes
that's
you're
like
just having
looking at
a
me
bad
when
day.
that's like looking at me when I walk around the house. I'm not moaning, I'm not limping. My husband at one point, he's like, "It's good you're not limping today." And I said, "No, I'm actually limping equally on both legs." So, no, no, my knees both hurt today. I'm just limping equally. Uh,
Yeah.
so I wanna know inside and outside. Do you look like you have a headache? Or
Mhm.
have you just come off of a bout of diarrhea? Is your gut still crampy? All the things that we would know because someone could you be like, "Oh, I had that, cold last week, so I've been coughing in my ribs.
Yeah,
It
or I
hurts
just
so bad."
slept wrong because 4
Mhm.
freaking dogs needed to sleep on the bed, and
I
I
can
had no room.
imagine.
Oh, they all do.
I
It's
I once strained a hip flexor so bad that I actually went to see the vet, and the
You
vet's like,
went to see the vet?
I always wish I could go see a vet. I get much better care,
Yeah.
frankly. But and the doctor said, like, I didn't the only way you could have strained that specific muscle is if you had straight legs, you were laying on your side, and you tried to lift the straight leg with a heavy, heavy weight on your ankles. And I was like, "Oh, oh,
Yeah,
I know how that
absolutely,
happens.
really.
That's called turning over in bed with 90 pounds of German Shepherd on my ankles." Oh, yeah,
With
no,
the dog who must have their body over your legs. Yeah, I can totally relate.
alright, so that's just
Now
life.
you know too much about our daily life.
I suspect anyone watching is like, "Oh, yeah, so we're not the only crazy
I
ones."
think something like 85% of people have their dogs sleep on the bed. It's a staggering amount.
I
And
think it's I
hey,
think it's actually the wrong way to phrase that. I think, close to 100% of dogs try to sleep on the bed.
yeah, yes, yes, I would agree.
Either way. So that can you really how good are we at assessing what does healthy normal function look like? What
Mhm.
does healthy what does a healthy dog look like when he's sitting, when he's moving, when he's standing? You
Yeah.
know,
Well,
what
you've
is
actually broken this down into a way to assess all of these behaviors. Do
Yep.
you wanna talk about that? 'Cause
Yeah. So
this is the genius of Suzanne.
mm. Thank you. So, yes, we have developed an app called FAT, Functional Assessment Tracking, and we're literally asking that question of how are you functioning today? So, if I called you today and, we've had this big weather shift, right? So, almost 70 last week, which was just like amazing.
It was awesome.
And then there was snow on the ground this morning, and it's snowing right now, even as I'm talking to you. So this whiplash, for older joints is not fun, and it's
Mhm.
hard on my old horses, the old cattle, and the old dogs. Um, so I can ask you, "How are you doing today?" If I'd asked you last week when it was warm and balmy and everything, you're like, "I'm feeling pretty good." Plus there was sunshine, which in the
Yeah,
Northeast we've not seen much.
automatically in a better mood. her
Exactly.
emotional state.
So how are you functioning? And so fat is meant to track how is this dog functioning right then and there, and it's going to be across physiological parameters, social parameters, and cognitive parameters. And it gives you a way. It leads you through a guided questionnaire. So you answer. Once the answers are done, it presents this beautiful at a glance graph, and then you can track this. So let's say they came to you and it's like, we're going to put them on these herbs. We're going to change the diet to this. We're going to take them off that. We're going to stop doing that. All right. So this is our baseline. So you could have this fat graph and that you and your vet can see. And then it's like, all right, report back in a week. So we can start to see the changes. So go ahead and you can queue up that video. It's easier to just
Let's
see it.
see, let's see if, okay, technology, let's see what we can do here.
There's the rub.
Yeah, there's the rub. Okay.
Shakespeare would have written an entire play about, the
Screen
drama
share.
of intuitive people trying to use machines.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take myself off screen so you won't hear anything I say, and leave Suzanne on so she can dive in if need be.
Okay.
This ought to be fun.
We'll see.
Okay. Actually, maybe I won't have to do that. Play.
Do, 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 do. So we see you, we see me.
Oh, we don't see this? You gotta love it. All right, show and stream. Take me out.
Yeah, you should make that bigger than me. You can probably just make me disappear. There you go. That's about perfect, I think. All right, just start again at the beginning and we'll be good. Perfect. That poor dog's like, why? All right, that's the elevator version. Very slow elevator, but it's an elevator. So you can Yeah, you can learn a lot more about what's
Yeah.
possible, but what you saw there was that those graphs that we have, so it's coded green, yellow, red, and green, the dog's pretty functional. You know, you might adjust something for perfection if you can. Yellow says this dog has some needs. There's something going on that's affecting how he functions. So we'll take, for example, eating. So, um, the nightmare is if you try to go away and leave instructions for your dogs. You're like, oh, he only likes to eat on carpeting, and don't put it in that bowl because he hates that bowl. And if it makes any sound on the tile, then he will stop eating and he won't start again. So if you've left the dog with someone who's like, he'll eat when he's bloody well good and hungry, it's like, well, maybe he won't.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know about your house, but if anyone caretaking my animal said, "Oh, Baloo didn't eat breakfast this morning," I'm like, "So you're calling me from the vets, right?" Because
Yeah.
none of my dogs leave a molecule of food, ever. Period. They're just excellent eaters. Um, so it goes through eating, drinking, sleeping, urination, defecation, mobility and pain, then work, play, performance, familiar people, unfamiliar people, absence of preferred person,
Mhm.
familiar dogs, unfamiliar dogs, and it scales all of that. And then it records it so you can then track the comparison. You saw the bar charts, and it's like, here's this dog. And so, we had a problem there, but now we added this, we changed the diet to that, we treated this infection, and now, okay, we've improved function.
I mean, it's such a sciency way to define normal and monitor changes. And one of the things I would say my owners, even though I have 2.0 and 3.0 owners in terms of their skills, their knowledge, their dedication, a record keeping system is beyond most of them. Or it's just a notebook and they have no way to follow trends. And that's what functional assessment testing really allows you to do, is to see what's trending,
And
what's
you
changing.
can't remember, right? I mean, if you're a really super skilled professional, this is the bane of most trainers and certainly of vets is you call and say, "How's Charlie doing?" And they're like, "Oh, he's fine." It's like, well, that is not an answer.
No,
You
it is.
know, is he eating? And you mean is he eagerly? We're just having like a blizzard. Most of the farm just disappeared. It is whiteout conditions. That's pretty funny. So much for spring. Charlie's eating. So the client says, yeah, he's eating. And what she means, as long as I warm it up and I put little bits of chopped steak on it and I
Oh,
freshly
yeah.
grate Parmesan, and I'm like, please, Charlie, for mommy, eat a bite. You think he's getting his face down in a bowl, cleaning the bowl and saying, thank you. I feel much better now. So remembering all the details is really difficult.
Mhm.
Understanding what are the details that matter, right? That's a nice quirk that he prefers that bowl in that location. More important is he eating? We'll start with that.
Right.
And so one of the things, the feedback we've gotten for some professionals was that, and pet owners, that fat helped them understand to think about and observe things that they're like, I would not have even thought to have done that. So some of the professionals are like, thank you, because it's training our staff,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The owner,
Being a
like,
good
I didn't even know
observer.
that was important to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll second the he's fine. It's like the level of observation that's needed to make that statement true is a
Mhm.
lot, and people don't realize.
And who has the time? It's not a vet's job to
No.
turn them into skilled observers, and, you guys are run off your feet as it is, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well,
and
and
on
I
the other
think
end, so are all the pet owners. We're all trying to do best by our animals, but so that's why we created FAT. It's like, let's keep a place for this information. You can also store, vet records and X-rays and pedigrees and photos and veterinary reports and anything you want other than video and audio, because those are, yeah, those are on you. Put them on your iPhone. That's where they
on
belong.
your phone, yeah.
But otherwise, right there, you've got it, and you can send it to the vet, right? Or the vet can say, hey, before our next visit, I'm going to need you. We haven't seen Charlie in 6 months. Can you go in, log into your client account and fill another fat in? Because now you, as the vet, step in and you can see that graph and you're like, huh,
Yeah.
what's going on here? What's going on here?
Sleep
Let's
habits have changed, or
Mhm.
He's not clearly exercise is a challenge for him,
Yeah,
right?
like, when did he stop having trouble with stairs?
Yeah.
'Cause that graph, when you click on it, expands out exactly what they chose.
Mhm.
So, you can say, "Oh, so
Maybe
here, all of
stairs,
a
can't
sudden."
jump on the couch, tires
Exactly.
usually on a walk,
Yep,
sort of thing.
exactly. All of it's there for you to see, and you can print out a cage card, so if that dog's going to a boarding kennel, it's like, "These are
Mhm.
things you need to know about this dog." Like, if
Yeah.
you feed him in a noisy environment and there's other dogs around, he may not eat. He needs to be taken to a quiet place by
Yeah.
himself to eat and left alone for 20 minutes.
It's funny you say that. During vet school, I lived at a boarding kennel, and it was a great deal. I had an apartment with a fenced-in yard, and they didn't care I had dogs. Like,
Perfect.
that's perfect. My Labrador ran with a Whippet and 4 corgis.
A
It
very fit
was
Labrador.
Yeah, well, and the Whippet would do laps. The corgis would get in each corner, and they would chase the Whippet through one span of the fence, and the Lab would be somewhere in the middle. But anyway, we had dogs that would not eat. If I fed everybody indoors, we had dogs that would just sit in the corner. I had guillotine doors out to a run. I would just put that dog's food outside and kick it outside.
Yep.
Problem solved. But that was me knowing one dog or having
If you
repeated
have a big kennel, right, and if you have people and sometimes this is the attitude, if he's hungry, he'll eat. It's like,
exactly.
well, that may have been a message you got as a kid at the table, and they're like, "You will eat these Brussels sprouts." It's like, "No, I'm never gonna get so hungry, I'm gonna eat liver, that's not happening."
It's not happening.
We forget that, and so that we can't
Yeah.
communicate that, or like that little clip in the video said, the you're thinking, "Is there something wrong with this dog? Do I need to take him to the vet? He only ate a small amount, then he walked away." And
Mhm.
you call the client like, "Hey, I've got your dog in my care. I think maybe I need to take him to the vet." And they're like, "Oh, yeah, I forgot to tell you. He'll do that all day." It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, the funniest story I heard was a dog walker, new client, golden retriever, and so she walks the dog, and 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 he still has not peed or pooped. And so she walks in almost close to 2 hours before she had to go to her next client. She finally calls the client, said, "I'm really, really sorry. I walked him as long as I can. I've gotta go to another appointment. I will come back and try again, but he hasn't peed or pooped." And the client's like, "Oh, yeah. I forgot to tell you. He pees and poops in the front yard before we go, then we go for the walk." So this
Mhm.
poor dog is like, "Oh, for the love of God,
Take me to the
just
front yard.
take me home." And so that would have gone down in the fat location, like urination, you know,
Front yard.
needs front
Here's
yard.
here's the daily routine. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. So whether you're just regularly, once a month, has anything changed? Or if you're dealing with a health issue, you're putting on board new protocols, new food, new training, new exercise, you've moved. For performance dogs, it's like, is this dog actually okay being trialed this many weeks? And it's like,
Yeah.
no, actually, by the second weekend in the month that you've taken this dog to an agility trial, he's not eating and he does have diarrhea and he's not getting enough sleep. It's like, so this he's not actually functioning well under these conditions. Now, how is this for you? This is something that we need to do something about.
Institute some changes. I
Mhm.
think of, AKC Nationals were just this past weekend,
Oh, okay.
and so everybody was traipsing down to Florida, competing, the travel, everything. If that was my goal, I would start my functional assessment testing like the previous January and track through the year so that, I hit that goal with my dog in optimal condition.
Yeah, and knowing that, okay, hotels are not good. Like this dog will be happier eating in his crate in the van, right? While I sit in the front seat and just read a book on Kindle or check Facebook or something.
Yeah,
Or I need to park further away because this dog is too stimulated by everybody coming and going, or he does not tolerate heat well. You know,
right.
so,
And we're going to Florida even though it's December, you know,
mhm,
what
yeah,
sort of heat adaptation programs can I institute?
exactly.
Yeah,
So
there's
just
so much
knowing,
so useful in so many different ways, both for professionals, for competitors, and for the average pet owner. I mean, I think of the dogs we diagnosed with cancer, the dogs that suddenly become hypothyroid, and we're now putting them back on the path to normal with thyroid replacement and other dietary changes. It's just a great tracking system.
Yep. So you can go dive into our free trial, and we have a pet owner version, which is just for a smaller amount of dogs. And then we have the pro accounts, and the pro accounts allow you to add clients, so
Mhm.
that Dr. Lori's pet owners can go into her fat account, and you can invite them, and so you've got control over the input, um,
Right.
and they can do that. So the pro accounts also let you assign staff, because it may be that if you've got dogs in kennels, say you're a boarding kennel or daycare,
Mhm.
the staff is not necessarily seeing one thing. The trainer might see one thing. The person responsible for husbandry is seeing something else. They can both go into the dog's account and add the parts that they've observed. And you can also just go in and say, nothing's really changed with this. This is the thing we're working on. So I can just enter the parts that matter. But you
Nice.
do get a sense of the whole dog. I just did a little new feed, and we'll have the case history thing up pretty soon. But so when I got there, there's a lot of things that were green. She was highly functional on almost all the physiological stuff. But when it came to learning, it was just red. And I'm like, what is that about? Tell me more about this. And it turned out it was the harness. That when the harness was such a bad fit for this little rescue dog, that when they went towards her, she's like, oh, first you're going to have to catch me to put that thing on me.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
I was like, oh, so they couldn't even take her for walks to help to
Wow.
expose her and socialize, because she was so miserable in that harness. We fixed the
Oh,
harness. Now we had a different, thing to deal with, because now she's happy to walk, but she's like, woo, woo, woo. There's everything was interrupting her learning. It's like, that's another story. But we
yeah.
had to start there. And unless I had done fat, they would have been like, she's not really good on walks. I'm like, I don't know what that means.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Well, and
like,
I think of applying that to horses. I mean, an ill-fitting saddle, the horse is bucking and unrideable,
yep.
um, but something that is properly fit and comfortable,
Yep.
okay.
Yep. And we spend so much time trying to, I know this is true of your viewers, and the vast overwhelming majority of folks that appreciate my work, is we are trying so hard to help our dogs have optimal life, right?
Mhm.
And while we would like them to live forever, we know that's not true, but can we have a long, good quality life
Yeah.
as long as possible? And so we need to know, what does quality look like? And
Mhm.
are all the interventions that we're doing actually making a difference? And so this is where I think fat's going to be really important in research, that now we've got data that says when we add this supplement, for example, this dog who has these mobility restrictions
Right.
is sleeping better. She's not painful, so she's not getting up and down, but she's also able to do the following things. So we've got some projects in the works with Virginia Tech and
Nice.
animal behavior folks there. Yeah. Dr. Era Feuerbacher is a friend of mine, also had one of my shepherds, but yep, she just is impressed by fat, and like, how can we get this to use in some research projects? So
Yeah,
that's,
that should be fascinating.
and for organizations like guide schools and service dog schools that
Yeah.
have puppies out there,
Right.
sometimes by time management is aware there was a problem brewing, it's like, oh, he's been doing that for 5 months. It's like, well, had we known that 5 months ago, we could have done something about it.
Right. If there
Now
was
he's,
that delay and I see
yeah,
some, you know,
halfway through adolescence and no one's dealt with this, we may have lost the dog to the program. So
right.
this
Or
might,
we may have identified a criteria that he's
yeah,
not a good candidate, and we
exactly.
can stop expending resources on him, and the adopters can keep him or what have you. Um,
Exactly. So, and going all the way to disaster dogs, the FEMA dogs. How is this dog doing? Because you're not even sent out on a FEMA disaster scene if you have like a open wound that's covered by a band-aid. They're like, no, no, you're going to end up as part of the problem.
yeah.
But when I assessed some FEMA disaster teams many years ago, they had a simulation. So the guy's on the rubble pile, and he had the wrong footwear, and it was just the handler. People were
Mhm.
like, what's wrong with this picture? And so I'm watching, I'm like, that's fine, but what about the dog? What's the assessment? Minimum hips, elbows, spinal
Right.
column, heart. They're like, well, no. I'm like, what? You're what? You're
Yeah.
deployed bring
Yeah,
the
I
dog
mean,
without asking, "Can
sending the
you?"
dog to the rubble at the World Trade Center after 9/11, that's potentially the site that they're going to. What
Yep,
are
and
their pads
that's
like? Are they wearing protective gear?
that was just a nightmare, which taught us a
Oh,
lot, but yeah, so being able to say, "This dog is struggling now to function, like, this is getting harder for him." One
mhm,
of the little teams I assessed was a beagle, and they presented to him to me, very interestingly, as he's burning out on the work. He's lost his work ethic. I
sure.
said, "Alright, let's see what that looks like." So they were working on the rubble pile, and the handler was quite tall, but it was just a 15-inch beagle. He's not a big guy. And she's up on the rubble pile, and she's like, "I need you to come up this way." And you see him, he, like, looks at her, and he looks at probably 3 plus feet, and you can see him, like so he's like, "How about I come up this way?"
Yeah.
And they're like, "You see what we mean?" I was like, Just keep working, I'm watching, 'cause he's
Mhm.
like, "I can," and then he very happily did his search on the rubble pile. He was
Mm,
very careful about where he positioned himself, how
right.
he used himself, and then we exercise done, so she wants to send him off again, and he gets to the edge, and he looks over, and he's like, "That's gonna hurt." It was like me, like, standing on a deck saying, "Go ahead, Suzanne, jump off. It's only a 10-foot drop, you'll be fine." Or in this case, at this age, 2-foot drop, and
Yeah.
I wouldn't jump off my kitchen table at this point, but, and I saw the little beagles, like, I can't, like, you could
Yeah,
just see him thinking, "That's gonna hurt." And what
yeah.
I noticed was how stiff he was through his body. He'd lost a lot of flexion in his back. He was
Mhm.
pretty locked up, and so he chose an alternate route and went down and then oriented himself right in front of his handlers, like, "What's next?" And they said, "You see what we mean?" I was like, I do, but I think the problem here is the misinterpretation. He's
Yeah,
not burning out. He's physically telling you, "I can't do it that way, but I can." Every time you asked, he offered you a compromise, and they
yeah.
were like,
Dog.
"Oh." So they took my advice. They got him massage therapy and chiropractic and
Yeah.
put him on different supplements. So rather than being retired, he actually went on and put in many more years as a disaster dog.
And with the understanding of the handler that, you've gotta be realistic in providing him a path.
Yeah, and when he
But
says, "I can't," you
that
have to believe him. You have to
Yeah,
believe him when he's like, "I hear
yeah,
what you're asking. I actually can't from here. Is there another way to make this happen?" So that
yeah.
was really good, and that gets us to that "can you," and then the last 2 questions in that elemental questions thing
Mhm.
is "May I?" Do I have permission to handle your body, direct your behavior, control your environment, whether that's just picking a dog up to pop them in a crate or grabbing their paw, as people do. They just grab them. I mean, I would slug somebody if they came over, "Let me see your shoe size," and just picked up my foot. You'd get a
Well,
bite.
or as veterinarians who rush into the dog's face, my
Mhm.
personal pet peeve, sticking their hand out so that the dog can sniff. It's like I had a veterinarian in my practice do that to a dog wearing a Baskerville muzzle. It's like I yelled at him. I It's like I had to speak up for the dog. Here's this dog who I had just spent happens to be a black German shepherd. I had just spent a very pleasant office call with. The dog is well trained, acceptant of what I have to do, and we minimize stress as best we can. And she wears her muzzle and she gets cookies through it. And, she knows the game and she can do no harm. So everybody's blood pressure is lower. And he rushes up to her. It's like, do you want to get bit? Do you want to screw this dog up? Have some respect for the dogs. Sorry,
And
my little
that's already on notice, right? They're
Yeah,
wearing a
they're
muzzle.
wearing a muzzle. Why do you think this dog in a veterinary hospital where it's comfort treatment wants to have a social interaction with someone they don't know?
No, that's like playing bridge with your gynecologist. No, I'm good. I'm good. Let's just get this over with, shall we?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah,
do
here's my
that.
goal as a trainer. Like I always say, I want to be able to count to 10 in the nursing home without help.
Yeah,
So I don't like being bit. And I and more than that flippant response, I intensely dislike pushing an animal to a situation where they feel they have to defend themselves
yeah,
or that they believe that I don't respect them. So, vets are like, let me see that foot. It's like, well, could you ask him for his foot? And it's like, that's on owners too. Can you teach him cooperative
Oh,
care?
please,
Not,
guys, advocate for your dogs. Teach
oh, do
them
not put him
teach
in
them
a
what might
headlock.
happen.
Yeah.
And if you have a vet that's going to be too bold with your dog, just step in front of your dog and say, hold on, he needs 5 minutes. I mean, I will often walk in the exam room, sit down, talk with the owner, and say, you can drop the leash or whatever, and totally ignore the dog. And you watch the dog check the room out, check me out, and watch their blood pressure go down, and then proceed in a thoughtful manner.
As they say in large animal
Yeah,
medicine, you rush, you get hurt. Someone's going to get hurt, you or the animal or both. And so I just because I worked in a crappy sales barn as a kid,
yeah,
every Thursday they went and loaded up a trailer with some horses that had, not great comfort. They were cheap horses. They were going to go to inexperienced people, but that's who I had to deal with all the time. And
yeah,
so I learned like you rush, it's going to go bad and it hurts.
yeah.
So those few minutes invested, and every now and then I'll ask people, how long do you think that took? And they're like, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes. It was 3.5 minutes before
Yeah,
the dog took a
yeah,
breath and calmed down. So sometimes we're in a rush, but we do that. May I, if the people involved with your animal are not asking that question and really listening, and they're just diving in to do, and that can be us. We can just grab a dog like, "Oh, I forgot to give you your meds. I forgot to put your eye drops in."
yeah,
It's like, well, you wouldn't grab your kid by the hair as she went by going, "Hey, you need your pill."
yeah,
You're like, "Hey, Sally, come here. I We gotta do this." But we
yeah,
think nothing of grabbing dogs by the collar or the body part. It's like, "No,
yeah.
no, may I?" And
No,
literally, if the answer is no, it's like, "All right, now do I just have to nicely finesse this because we don't have time to train this?" And this is the
yeah,
catch
that is
22
the catch.
medical care. But if you live with the dog, it's like this is only gonna happen once and it'll be over with and done. Just get it over with, really.
Yeah,
But if it's something we have to do constantly, it's like, then I have to teach you how it's gonna happen. Our, River had some retained canines, all 4. I was like, "Really? You look like some little, crocodilian puppy."
mhm,
And then, of course, she was teething, so she really didn't want me to touch her mouth, but I'm like,
right.
"But I gotta see because at a certain age, we may have to do something to help you, right?" Like, "Play tug harder," I kept saying, "Play tug harder."
Yeah, let's pop that.
Yeah, exactly. And she just started to think like, "I don't want you touching my face." And this
Yeah,
is a very affectionate puppy, and I thought, "No, this is gonna go badly. I'm gonna take you to the vets, and they're just gonna dive into that mouth," and it's like, I'm not having it.
yeah,
So and it's like, "All right, we're gonna start cooperative care. Put your chin there. Now I'm just gonna touch."
mhm,
And now you can say chin, and I can tell her, I'm gonna touch your teeth. I'm gonna do stuff with your eyes. I'm gonna do ear. I tell her what I'm doing. And so that's how we advocate. But that may I is that question that's underlying that. Remember, I said these are the only 6 questions I ask.
that you really need to get your answers.
Yep.
Well,
And
I think "may I" is probably the one that resonates with me and that crosses even to humans. You know, I'll ask people, "May I ask you about this?" Or, you know, because sometimes as a vet, you wind up in people's lives deeper than you'd really like to go.
same with trainers. Yep.
Same with trainers, and it's like, "If I may ask," and, you can tell immediately if they don't wanna answer, and I'm like, "Hey, at whatever level you want or don't want is okay."
Yeah,
Um,
I'm just trying to help your animal. I'm not trying to become your therapist.
oh,
Although
please, no. I do think all veterinarians should have some sort of training in human therapy because we
they come
wind up feeling they come with them. They do.
even a zoo animal comes with a keeper who's emotionally invested in this
Mhm.
animal. There's no such thing as an animal that does not come with a person unless you're
Right,
doing wildlife rehab, in which
right,
case
right.
then it's just you and that animal. So it's off. And then the final question that we ask is, can we? And that's about you and me, animal,
Mhm.
with my skills and my limitations and how I experience the world and what I want to do, and then you and how you experience the world and what you like to do. What can we together do? Like, I
Yeah.
would love to tell my pony, "Yes, we'll go galloping across the fields every morning, in our sunrise service." 1, I'm a night owl, so it's not gonna happen. 2, at 65, I don't know that I have the confidence anymore to go galloping on anything. How about do we quietly stroll? And
Mhm.
that's fine, but, the other thing that, she would prefer to do is eat her way to outer Mongolia. So
Mhm.
so that is a crunch there. Can we enjoy a quiet trail ride or even just a walk? And the answer is maybe.
Mhm.
There's chest high grass, in which case she looks like a whale shark just going through the field. Opens her mouth and lets all the grass come in. So, and the same is true with dogs. It's like, can we together do this thing?
Right. And sometimes the answer will be no, and you'll come up with something else to ask.
Yeah, it's like,
No is an acceptable answer.
exactly. Learning to hear no to any of those questions are, hello, are you interested in chatting with me? No, I'm not. Can you, how are you? It's like, I'm not happy in this moment and I don't want to be here. And can I do it? No, not emotionally prepared to handle this
And
thing
there.
you need to do. Exactly. So then it's like, okay, now we have a different set of questions. How do we make it better? How do we make this fair?
Yeah.
Because we're the ones with the greater resources. We're the ones that have the creativity to lay awake all night thinking. The dog won't. The dog just says, that was the card I played. That's the behavior option I've got. That is how my body works. That's how I process the world.
Mhm.
We need to find another solution if that's not okay. I either need more skills, I need some kind of support, whether that's diet or medication or PT, or I need a change in my environment or expectations,
Mhm.
all of that. So, when people say, really, just those 6 questions is all you're asking, I'm like, turns
Yeah.
out it all boils down to those 6 questions. Mhm.
Yeah. It's so simple, it's elegant.
Well, that's what I'm always after is elegant training, not Rube Goldberg devices where first we train that and then we shape that and we do this. I was watching somebody once trying to shape a dog to make eye contact. And this is back when Karen Pryor started teaching
Sure.
stuff. So everybody's got a clicker and a
We've
treat
all got
bag and
answers, yep.
all going to train their dolphins, right? So I'm just watching and this woman's like, well, then his nose moved, then his nose moved, and what she was going for was eye contact. And I thought, that seems a very long road to China.
Yeah, yeah,
Possibly with a rowboat, so I just stepped in front of my dog and just waited, and the dog's like, "What do you want?" I was like, "Click."
yeah.
Like, it's in
Yeah,
his repertoire already. He
and
knows how to do that.
Karen was amazing. I was lucky enough to go to a seminar with her, the first one she and Gary Wilkes did together at Gail Fisher's back in
Oh,
the 90s. I and
yep.
then I went to the following one, and, she brought an 8-week-old, 9-week-old golden puppy out there and taught it to lie down on the stage. I mean, but her timing was impeccable. She
Mhm.
knew what she was looking for, like you. She knew when to wait. She prompted the behavior a bit, but, that was a master trainer
Yeah.
who was used to working with creatures that were in the sea or out of her direct control. And then you put a leash in someone's hand and a clicker in the other and treats in their pocket, and they can't think, they can't do anything. Um,
Well, that's
but
the whole tool for the human animal is as a trainer, if I can't come up with I joke that my next book is gonna be the "What the? Oh, okay" approach to dog training. Because if the dog can fill in the blank after "What the,"
yeah,
it's too big a chunk,
yeah,
right? So the dog might hesitate and then be like, "Oh, I could do that." That's
yeah,
exactly what I'm always after. But the handler has to also be given information
right.
in that way, and this is where I think sometimes trainers make their clients' eyes just glaze over,
Yeah.
right? And,
Too
vets have
much
to
information,
yeah,
too
too
much
much
information.
information, too high a level. It's not that they're incapable of learning it, but the same thing when you're delivering information as a vet, it's like I'm not going to sit someone down and let's discuss 5 element theory and then learn all the acupuncture. It's like you see this point here. I want you to work that with your fingertip 5 times a day for a count of 10. Just do that.
Yep.
Sometimes you've got to give the learner or the person or animal you're interacting with the information at a level that makes sense to them, that they can grasp, that can then change their behavior. Because if it doesn't change their behavior, in NLP, they always ask, what's the communication you gave? It's the result you got.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, so be careful about that. So I think with people too, what oh, okay, I get that. You don't drown them in veterinary technology and language, but
You
depends on
don't
who they are.
it's so easy to take the human, the handler, into overwhelm.
Yeah,
Um,
and I don't know why we do it, but we certainly do it. And I
in
think
my
breeders like
profession,
their
the
technology jargon. Yes.
technology, jargon, and the desire to show, not to show off how much you know, but to show them like you're on top of this, you got this, you know everything, and you try to just dump it on them and it doesn't work.
No, I like to say that while I certainly can technically explain most anything I do, you've seen me many times, I don't. Like, you wanna
Right.
know the why, I'll tell you the why so you're empowered to make good choices,
Yeah.
right, and make decisions, but mostly, I just let the dogs make the case for
Mhm.
me.
Yeah.
It's like,
And it
"So, this is
change
what I'm gonna do, that's why I'm doing it, and, let's see what the dog says," and the dog's like, "Yeah, what she said." Then
yeah,
I know I've done something. They'll
yeah,
make much more elegant argument for me that maybe what I'm saying is worth listening to or considering because that was a different response than you got from the dog. Okay,
yeah,
I can show you how to get that too.
yeah,
And so that
yeah.
goes on longer. So that's me in a nutshell, those 6 questions.
That's yeah,
And
that's Suzanne. So, thank you, thank you, thank you.
you are welcome.
This has been another marathon. In the comments, guys, we've put Fat for Dogs, which is where you can get the functional assessment tool. And if you scroll up to the top of the comments, links to Suzanne's websites and other offerings, including you have a bunch of free blogs and resources.
We've got free articles, we've got blogs, we've got some free videos from different lectures I've given in different places, keynote speak from big conference out in Minnesota. And then there's links to all of our webinars, the live events. We're back to being in person again,
Yeah, yeah,
seminars, which is such a joy to have real dogs and real
people.
people in front of me instead of a green light on the computer. Uh,
Exactly.
like, hi, little green light. I feel like
Mm,
Gatsby, just like I'm always going towards that green light.
yeah,
Um, and so
but
there's also links there to our webinars and our online courses. There's some free online courses, and there's some moderate level ones for different skills, and then there's big ass
well,
certificate.
and you offer intense classes, webinars, and such for people who are professional trainers who need continuing education units for their
Absolutely.
organization.
Yep.
So for people who can't travel to seminars and get those CE units, it's an alternative.
Yep. We've got people all over the world now learning with me, and that is such a great joy because beforehand, pretty much if you couldn't make it to where I was in the world,
Right.
remember one lady from Malta every year would write, "When are you coming to Malta?" And I'm thinking, probably never. I'm
Yeah,
just I'm just
yeah.
betting not enough people.
And even if
It's
you're in the United States, traveling across the country is
expensive.
a challenge and it gets expensive.
Yep.
And, as someone, and remember everybody, the Healthy Dog Expo is now in 2025.
I
Get
saw that.
the website. Yeah, it was a perfect storm and it was the best choice for everyone. So I do
Sounds
apologize to everyone who's disappointed, including me. But don't worry, I got your back. Uh,
well, I've got it on my calendar, and,
good,
I looked at
good.
my husband, I'm like, "Yay, a weekend where I have nothing on the calendar because I have nothing on the calendar now," so
You
that's a
don't,
rare
yeah,
thing, so yay
it,
for me. Sorry for everyone who was
yeah,
ready.
yeah.
Mm.
And just the costs of putting on an event is, and the headaches that can happen. But we're still trucking.
And
So,
nobody died, so let's just keep going. That's my
let's just
rule.
keep going. So thank you again for taking the time. Guys, I will be back tomorrow, same time, 2 o'clock Eastern, with Zach from Viva Raw, and tentatively with Dr. Harvey's on Friday at 2 o'clock. So you get me
Cool.
3 times this week. And of course, everything's recorded and watchable on Facebook or YouTube.
I can't
So
wait to get fat hooked up with someone who wants to demonstrate that this food or this supplement really makes a difference in dogs. That's going to be fun. We'll wait. We'll see.
We'll get there. All right. Thanks, guys. Bye for now.
Bye.